Hey everybody, today we're going to be doing a CySA Plus practice test. This is going to test your knowledge and basically just see if you're prepared to take the actual test. Well, not really. You have to do a lot of practice questions and a lot of hands-on with different tools and stuff to actually be ready. But we're just going to go through these practice questions. And I mean, they're moderately hard, but if you know the acronyms, if you know all the stuff that goes into it, it's a little bit easier. So without further ado, let's get into this. So let's get into this. I want to see what these questions are like. Practice test CySA. In a hybrid network architecture incorporating software-defined networking, zero trust principles, and secure access service edge, an organization experienced irregular peer-to-peer communication spike on a non-standard port alongside anomalous registry changes in Windows systems. These coincide with beaconing patterns detected via SIEM log, security information event management log, potentially indicating an APT, advanced persistent threat, leveraging containerized environments for lateral movement. Which of the following best describes the primary role of time synchronization and correlating these indicators using EDR tools and Wireshark while considering misconfigurations in federation-based single sign-on? It ensures accurate timestamping across the logs to prevent false positives from clock drift, allowing precise sequences of events like beaconing and registry changes. It primarily facilitates SSL, secure socket layer, inspection, and public key infrastructure to decrypt exfiltration with minimal impact on log correlation. It automates threat hunting IOCs but does not affect EDR or Wireshark analysis in hybrid setups. It only applies to on-premises logs, ignoring cloud containerization and zero trust models. So that's A, B, C, or D. And I mean, basically for this one, you'd want basically what is the peer-to-peer communication spikes? Why are those happening? And why do these coincide with the beaconing pattern? And how does this all relate? And there's keywords in here that'll help you differentiate and actually find the right answer. So yeah, I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to actually think about it. So yeah, like I said, I'm just going to give you a little bit of time to actually think about the answer. And it does talk about a lot of like the primary rows, correlating these indicators using EDR tools. It talks about the registry, stuff like that. So now I'm going to show the answer if you have your answer locked in, whatever it is. So the correct answer is A. It ensures accurate timestamping across the logs to prevent false positives from clock drift, allowing precise sequencing of events like beaconing and registry changes. So why is this explanation? In security operations, time synchronization, via the network sign protocol, is critical for log ingestion because it aligns timestamps from diverse sources like security information event management, endpoint detection and response. My bad. Let's just look at this one for a second. And Wireshark captures in a hybrid environment. This prevents issues like clock drift, which could misorder events. Beaconing detected before registry changes. Example, beaconing detected before registry changes when it was actually after without it correlating indicators across software-defined networking, zero trust, and secure access service edge. It becomes unreliable, right? It's missing some of like the key stuff because if your time synchronization is off, you're not going to be getting all that. And option B, it downplays the role in log correlation. Log and correlation is really important if you're like a SOC analyst, stuff like that, security analyst. Then we have time sync is foundational for all analysis tools, not just automation. Then we have D is wrong because it applies universally, not just on premises. So I hope you understood that question and why time synchronization was probably the better answer, right? Time stamping. So let's go to question 2 real quick. Given a scenario where a serverless cloud infrastructure shows unexpected outbound communication from a containerized application, so think like Docker, Kubernetes, stuff like that, with logs indicating unauthorized scheduled task and file system anomalies. So we're going to be using TCP dump. Which step in the process using TCP dump, virus total and security, orchestration, automation, and response would most effectively incorporate regular expressions and Python scripting to parse JSON formatted logs for obfuscated links while integrating cloud access security broker with data loss prevention to prevent protected identifiable information exfiltration from an unintentional insider. So the answers we have for this is after hashing files in VirusTotal, use Python regex to filter JSON logs for patterns like encoded URLs. Then automate DLP alerts via SOAR if CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker, detects insider access. We have B, start with SOAR orchestration to bypass TCP dump, focusing solely on CASB for protected identifiable information. Personal identifiable information, my bad. Sorry about that. Scanning without regex parsing. Use TCP dump to capture packets, then apply regex in Python on raw captures instead of JSON logs. Ignoring data loss prevention, integration. Rely on VirusTotal. D. Rely on VirusTotal for all analysis using SOAR to automate CASB, but excluding Python scripting for efficiency. So I'm not going to tell you the one that I think it is, but I'm going to tell you why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, right? So, I mean, they're talking about, if you read the last line, they're talking about what would most effectively incorporate regular expressions, which is regex, in Python scripting to parse JSON formatted, incorporate regular expressions, which is regex, in Python scripting to parse JSON formatted logs for obfuscated links while integrating CAS with DLP to prevent PII, which is personal identifiable information, exfiltration from an unintentional insider. So we got to think, where's that personal identifiable information coming from, right? So it's asking about how we are incorporating the regular expressions, which is how we're parsing the data basically, because regex helps you parse data. After hashing in files in VirusTotal, use Python regex to filter JSON logs for patterns like encoded URLs, then automate DLP, data loss prevention, alerts via SOAR if CAS detects. So I mean, this is just saying what and why everything's important. And I mean, it's highlighting the importance of Python and regex to filter those JSON logs. It's talking about data loss prevention, automated alerts, the security orchestration, automation, and response, the cloud access security broker, and detecting insider threats. It's talking about the outbound traffic. And why is B, C, and D wrong? B skips key tools like TCP dump and regex over relying on CASB. C just says regex to raw packets instead of structured JSON logs. So with raw packets, you're not really going to be getting that much stuff unless it was unencrypted, right? Because most stuff now is using like HTTPS. Excludes scripting, which is essential for custom parsing, and ignores comprehensive integration. D. So that's D. And that's why the other ones are wrong. So sorry for giving you out the answer, but that was an accident. I'm not going to lie, but that was actually an accident. Next time, I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to have you think about it. But for this next one, we just got to think about why I guess we're on number 3 now. When comparing tactics, techniques, procedures, that's what TTP is for, of a nation state APT versus a hacktivist group in a scenario with bandwidth consumption spikes, rogue devices on premises, network segment, and malicious process consuming drive capacity. Which factor from the open source threat intelligence, example cert bulletins, and closed source paid feeds would most critically influence confidence levels for indicators of compromise collected via honeypots, particularly and active defense targeting business critical assets? So we're going to do the answer choices. A, accuracy and relevancy of tactics, techniques, procedures. As nation states use sophisticated persistence, unlike hacktivists. Disruptive tactics with honeypots validating indicators of compromises through timeliness. B, timeliness alone, since paid feeds prioritize speed over accuracy, and distinguishing advanced persistent threat from hacktivist behaviors. C, relevancy to passwordless PAM failures, but ignoring honeypot data in favor of bulletins. D, accuracy in organized crime context only, excluding advanced persistent threat or hacktivist differentiation. Differentiation, I have no idea how to say that. But now, I mean, it's asking, in a scenario with bandwidth consumption spikes, rogue devices on premises, network segment, and malicious processes consuming drive capacity, which factor from open source threat intelligence? So it's asking specifically for open source threat intelligence factors and closed source paid feeds would most, they're asking about closed as well. Closed paid would most critically influence confidence levels. So they're talking about the confidence levels. So when you think about an indicator of compromise, that's how you figured out, I got compromised. And they're trying to see, I'm this confident that this actually happened. So, and they're specifically talking about honeypots. So I'm not going to linger too long. I'm actually going to give the answer here. But just think about it for a couple seconds before you answer it. I'll give you a couple seconds to answer it. Okay, I'm going to show you the answer right now. So the correct answer is A, accuracy and relevancy of tactics, techniques, procedures as nation states use sophisticated persistence unlike hacktivists. Disruptive tactics. With honeypots validating IOCs through timeliness. So the honeypots are actually validating, oh, I've seen these attackers, because what are honeypots? Honeypots actually help you see what attackers are doing. You might have honeypots, you might have honey networks. That is a network of honeypots together. And there's going to be stuff in there that is used to look like actual targets that these people go after, right? So the explanation, threat intelligence, confidence levels, timeliness, relevancy, and accuracy help differentiate tactics, techniques, and procedures. Nation states' advanced persistent threats focus on long-term persistence, while hacktivists prioritize disruption. Open source CERT and closed source feeds provide context, with honeypots and active defense capturing real-time indicators of compromise for business-critical assets, emphasizing timeliness for validation. This informs PAM. So what is PAM? I think it's password access management. I'm just giving it a guess, but I think it's password access management. Adjustments like password lists to counter failures. So the reason why BCD is wrong, overemphasizes timeliness alone, ignoring holistic assessment. C narrows to password access management irrelevantly. I don't even know if that's an actual word, and dismisses honeypots. D shifts to organized crime, missing the comparison. So I'm going to go to the next question. I hope you figured out why this A was right. So let's go to the next one. The question number 4. In a large organization with fragmented security operations, which approach to standardizing processes for automating host-related indicators like processor and memory consumption anomalies would best utilize SOAR plugins and webhooks for tool integration, while minimizing human engagement through data enrichment from the deep dark web sources, deep/dark web sources, and DMARC/SPF. And I'll tell you what DMARC stands for and what SPF stands for. DMARC is domain. I know what SPF, it's sender policy framework, and it's the email headers, right? DMARC is reporting and conformance is the last two, but DMARC. So DMARC stands for domain message authentication, reporting and conformance. SPF stands for sender policy framework. So it's taking in the email headers for analysis. It's analyzing those email headers. So A, automate virtualization. Oh, my bad. Automate virtualization, misconfigurations, but exclude host indicators from webhook integration. That's A. Automate virtualization misconfigurations. B is focus on manual coordination for email analysis, using plugins only for scan/sweeps, without automation. C, identify repeatable tasks like anomaly pattern recognition, orchestrate via SOAR, webhooks, to enrich intelligence and integrate into a single pane of glass for software-defined network hybrid correlation. D, standardize solely on human-driven processes, bypassing SOAR for dark web enrichment. So I can think that some of these are wrong, right? Especially, well, my thing keeps on going, but definitely I would tell you that why would you want to solely standardize? In today's world, why would you want to standardize solely on anything, right? Because there's so much stuff that you actually have to know. So standardize solely on human-driven processes, bypassing SOAR for dark web enrichment. I don't think that's a very good answer, in my opinion. But who knows? But let's see what the answer is, right? And I'm just going to give you a couple seconds, pick your answer, right? But just think about the keywords, the stuff that gives away the answer, basically. So while minimizing human engagement through data enrichment from deep, dark web sources, it's talking about email header analysis. It's talking about security operations, standardizing processes, automating host-related indicators. It's thinking about that type of stuff. So lock in your answer, and then I'm going to go to the next explanation for number 4. We're going to number 4. The correct answer is C. Identify repeatable tasks like anomaly pattern recognition, orchestrate via SOAR webhooks to enrich intelligence, and integrate into a single pane of glass for software-defined networking hybrid correlation. Efficiency in security operations involves standardizing by identifying automatable tasks. Repeatable non-human, interactive like monitoring, processor, memory via patterns. Using SOAR plugins, webhooks for integration, enriching, my bad, that messed me up that it switched, but using SOAR plugins, webhooks for integration, enriching deep dark web data with email headers via DMARC and SPF. Single pane of glass unifies views for fragmented ops, aiding software-defined networking hybrid scans, sweeps, correlation, and minimizing engagement. A limits the scope to virtualization, excluding key host indicators. So that's why A is wrong. B contradicts by favoring manual processes because they wanted to do everything solely like human, right? No, both B and D wanted to do everything solely human, right? I guess but D definitely wanted to do everything solely human, right? But D avoids automation entirely, wanting to do everything human-based, not wanting to have any click a button and it does something for you. B contradicts by favoring manual processes. So I hope you understood that explanation. Then I explained it the best I could. But let's get to number 5, if I can skip to it. I have no idea why my bar is down there that's saying the time. I wish that would just go away, but I have no idea what's there. Let's read the question. In a scenario where a CASB detects unauthorized privileges in a federated identity system using multi-factor authentication and single sign-on, leading to CHD, which is cardholder data, leading to cardholder data exfiltration via unusual traffic on unexpected ports, which integration of SSL, secure socket layer inspection, via PKI, which is public key encryption, and EDR, which is endpoint detection response with user behavior analysis. Example of this would be impossible travel, behaviors that the person can be using, and would most effectively hunt for the organized crimes TTPs, which is tactics, techniques, procedures, while emphasizing system hardening and Windows registry. So I know you can't see D really well, but A, use CASB alone for decryption, ignoring public key encryption and EDR in favor of MFA resets. Decrypt traffic with PKI to reveal beaconing, cross-reference, EDR forensics with impossible travel logs, and harden registry via PowerShell to block privilege escalation. We have C, focus on SSO, federation without registry hardening, applying behavior analysis post-exfiltration. We have D, hunt TTPs via EDR, but exclude SSL inspection for performance reasons. And I can already rule out the red herrings for this, but I'm going to let you answer it. So it's talking about what would be the most effective to hunt for organized crime, tactics, techniques, and procedures. I already know the answer, but lock in your answer now so that we can go to the explanation. Okay, I'm about to switch to the next explanation. I'm about to give you out the answer. If you've answered your question or you need some more time, but pause the video if you need more time. That's easier than me just talking. And the correct answer is B, decrypt traffic with PKI, public key encryption to reveal beaconing, cross-reference endpoint detection and response forensics, with impossible travel logs and hardened registry via PowerShell to block privilege escalation. Explanation. For CHD, which is cardholder data, exfiltration and federated identity access management, multi-factor authentication SSO, which is single sign-on, public key encryption, or why do I keep on saying that? It's public key infrastructure, but PKI enables secure socket layer inspection for to decrypt and spot beaconing on odd ports. Endpoint detection and response provides endpoint insights combined with behavior analysis and possible travel indicating compromised accounts. To hunt organized crime, TTPs. Example could be privilege abuse, right? System hardening like securing Windows registry / config files via PowerShell scripts prevents escalation from anomalies. A, underuses tools, ignoring PKI EDR, delays analysis and skips hardening. D, avoids inspection risking missed encrypted threats. So I hope that helped you figure out why decrypting the traffic is always a better thing than just letting that traffic sit there unencrypted, especially when you have the ability to decrypt it. And if it helps you to spot beaconing and all that, it's always better to actually do that, right? I would think at least. In a zero trust network architecture blending, okay, now we're on number 6. Sorry for not telling you. In a zero trust network architecture blending on premises cloud elements with network segmentation where irregular peer-to-peer communications introduces rogue devices causing service interruptions, which threat hunting strategy uses whois or abuse IPDD or IP database and CompTIA Sandbox would be best targeting isolated networks and containerization misconfigurations while leveraging synchronized log ingestion at debug levels. So I mean, this one's a little bit harder, but once you look at the answer choices, it'll actually come right out and you'll spot it. Target. So for A, we have target on premises only, ignoring cloud containerization and zero trust hunts. B, rely on secure access service edge for social engineering prevention. Skipping sandboxing for isolated networks. Use log ingestion without synchronization, focusing on obfuscated links via whois only. And I can already tell you that whois, I don't know why they'd only want to do one thing. It's always best in cybersecurity go do multiple things. We have D, query IP reputation with whois, and abuse IP database, sandbox suspicious files in CompTIA, and correlate debug logs synchronized across segments to detect exfiltration tactics. So I'm gonna let you think about that for a little bit, but just think for a minute what the answer is. And I'm sure a lot of you are already gonna be getting this answer. It sticks out like a sore thumb, but I know you're gonna be getting it. So pause the video, answer the question, and I'm gonna be going to the explanation. So the correct answer is D, query IP reputation with whois, abuse IPD, sandbox suspicious files in CompTIA. CompTIA is that sandbox that allows you to actually run malware. It's isolated, so it's not going to get on your actual network. But if it's in a sandbox, I mean, it shouldn't be able to get out, right? But who knows in this day and age. And correlate debug logs synchronized across segments to detect exfiltration tactics. Explanation: in zero trust with segmentation, hunting starts with IP checks. So you're checking for those rogue devices with abuse IPD database, whois, and sandboxing, so you can actually check for those, I don't know, could it be malware or could it be like peer-to-peer artifacts that we're seeing? And synchronized logs at debug levels, detailed logging. So I believe debug levels are like more on a lower level so you can actually see more stuff, more privileged and stuff, so you can see better logs and stuff. To sequence events across on-premises cloud, spotting, exfiltration, or interruptions. This targets, I don't know what I said right there. This targets isolated networks, containers, misconfigs, while secure access service edge aids obfuscated link prevention and social engineering. The reason A is wrong is because it ignores hybrid cloud aspects. So a lot of people nowadays are using both cloud and on-premises. That's called the hybrid architecture, you know. You got some of your stuff in the cloud and you're monitoring your on-premises systems in the cloud so you can always see, oh, this server is up and all that. So you can see if your on-prem servers are up from the cloud. So that answer was just not thinking about that. So B skips core hunting tools. It was rolling out a bunch of the tools, so that's why that one was wrong. C, risk inaccurate correlation without sync. So I don't know what C was, but let's go look at C. C says use log ingestion without synchronization. That is horrible advice, I'm not gonna lie. Because how are you gonna know when stuff actually happened? How are you gonna know when the hackers actually infiltrated your network, tried to do data exfiltration, put malware so that they could do command and control servers, stuff like that? I mean, why would you do that, right? So that was obviously a wrong answer. If you got it wrong, you're still learning, right? But now we're on number 7. Given host-related indicators, such as abnormal operating system process behavior and unauthorized software alongside application-related unexpected output, which correlation method using SIEM, EDR, and shell scripts with regular expressions would best identify malicious processes from script kiddies or insiders, while enhancing detection through the threat intelligence sharing for vulnerability management? A. Share intelligence but ignore rejects for file analysis. B. Use SIEM alone for sweeps, excluding EDR and scripting for simplicity. C. Focus on vulnerability management without indicator or correlation. D. Correlate SIEM logs with EDR forensics. Apply rejects and shell scripts for string hashing. And share indicators of compromise via intelligence feeds to patch vulnerabilities in serverless setups. So I'm going to give you, just pause the video, answer the question, right? We're going to go to the next thing. Pause the video right here, lock in your answer, and then we're going to go to the answers, explanations. The correct answer is D, correlate SIEM logs with EDR forensics. Apply rejects and shell scripts for string hashing. And share indicators of compromise via intelligence feeds to patch vulnerabilities in serverless setups. Explanation: for host application indicators, abnormal processes, unauthorized software output, SIEM correlates logs, EDR adds forensics, and shell scripts with regex-enabled pattern recognition. Hashing strings for malicious identification from script kiddies and insiders. Sharing indicators of compromise enhance vulnerability. Management detection, especially in serverless. So let's look at our wrong answers. We have A, B, C. A drops rejects weakening analysis. B limits to seam, meshing depth. C skips correlation. So we can go back, look, and drops rejects, limits to seam, skips correlation. So this B drops EDR altogether. C, focus on vulnerability management without indicator correlation. This one says, oh, I'm not going to use any indicator correlation. A says ignore rejects. Don't be using rejects. And those are all wrong answers. A, B, C is wrong. So now we're going to go to question 8. When contrasting threat intelligence collection from internal sources versus government bulletins in a scenario involving an APT using new account introductions and unauthorized hardware changes, which focus area in threat hunting indicator of compromise application for business critical processes would best utilize Joe Sandbox and pattern recognition for C2 interpretation with SOAR data enrichment for accuracy? So A, enrich the data without indicators of compromise, applications in business processes. B, prioritize government sources only, skipping sandboxing for insiders. Analyze internal logs for timeliness. Enrich bulletins via SOAR for accuracy. Sandbox and Joe for C2 patterns, targeting misconfigurations. D, use pattern recognition but exclude SOAR for hybrid threats. So the main thing you have to look at here, which focus area in threat hunting IOC applications. Think about business critical processes that Joe Sandbox and pattern recognition would utilize for C2 interpretation with that SOAR data for enrichment for the accuracy as well. So we got to think, what would that actually entail? We have all these ones, but I'm going to skip to the answer. So pause the video, lock in your answer, and we're going to go to the explanation. The correct answer is C. Analyze internal logs for timeliness. Enrich bulletins via SOAR for accuracy. Sandbox and Joe for C2 patterns, targeting misconfigurations. Explanation: internal sources provide timely, organization-specific intel, while bulletins offer broader context. Contrasting helps in APT scenarios. New accounts could be a scenario. Threat hunting applies indicators of compromise to critical processes via sandboxing. So we're using Joe Sandbox for safe execution and pattern recognition with C2 commands. So you're looking at command and control commands. SOAR enriches for accuracy, aiding unintentional insider handling in hybrids. A skips application. B excludes internal sandboxing. No, internals and sandboxing. D drops SOAR. So I hope that explanation helped you figure out why C is right, and and why you'd want to actually maximize that accuracy via SOAR, and why you'd want to check for those C2 patterns in any type of sandbox. We're using Joe in this example, but let's get into the next question. I hope you actually understood that one. In virtualization environments protected by data loss prevention for personal identifiable information and cardholder data, where indicators include memory spikes, file changes, and impersonating email headers, lacking domain key identified mail, which use of Wireshark and Python for XML log parsing would best detect exfiltration without outlining PAM's role. And PAM isn't a person. I mean, I see people thinking PAM's a person. PAM is password access management. Outlining password access management's role in escalation prevention and application programming interface automation and software-defined networks. So I mean, A, use Python for JSON only, ignoring XML and PAM. B, focus on data loss prevention without packet capture or parsing. C, capture packets in Wireshark, parse XML logs with Python to validate headers, and force PAM to limit access and automate response via APIs and SOAR. D, automate software-defined network, but exclude exfiltration detection. I can already tell what one's wrong. I'm not going to give you any hints, but pause the video and answer the question. And I'm going to get to the explanation here in a couple seconds. So, as you can see, C is correct. Capture packets in Wireshark, parse XML logs with Python to validate headers, enforce privileged access management to limit access, and automate responses via APIs and SOARs. I'm sorry, guys. There's way too many acronyms in cybersecurity. I'm not even lying. But PAM actually stands for Privileged Access Management. I'm sorry if y'all thought it was protected or like password access management, but it's actually Privileged Access Management to limit access and automate responses via APIs and SOAR. That's why I don't like acronyms, because it can mean multiple different things. But, you know, it is what it is. Explanation for virtualization indicators, memory spikes, file changes, domain key identified mail, lacking emails, Wireshark captures, exfiltration traffic, Python parses XML logs. For impersonation detection, PAM prevents escalation by managing privileges with API SOAR automating and SDN for efficiency. The reason A is wrong is because it limits to JSON and it ignores privileged access management. B skips capture parsing. D drops detection focus. Sorry, I know we all make mistakes. I made a mistake at telling an acronym wrong, but we all make mistakes, right? So now that you know the answer, let's go to number 10. In a virtualization environment protected by DLP, data loss prevention for protected, I don't even know. These acronyms are getting in my head. For personal identifiable information and cardholder data, where indicators include memory spikes, file changes, and impersonating email headers, lacking domain keys identified mail. Which use of Wireshark and Python for XML log parsing would best detect exfiltration, while outlining PAM's role in escalation prevention and API automation and SDN networks? That was a whole mouthful, I'm not going to lie. But, I mean, these are the type of questions, right? You're going to get long questions like this. I know it's like a whole run-on sentence, but you're going to be getting a big thing like this, and you're going to have to differentiate what matters. So, A, target organized crime, only ignoring hacktivist tactics, techniques, procedures. B, hunt without TCP dump, focusing on encryption alone. C, evaluate confidence, but exclude single pane automation. D, capture with TCP dump, orchestrate and SOAR for behavior anomalies, assesses intelligence accuracy / relevancy, and integrate plugins for automated email checks in a unified way or view. So I'll give you a minute to think about that. Pause the video so you can think about what that answer actually is. I'm going to skip to the answer now. The correct answer is A, capture with TCP dump, orchestrate and SOAR for behavior anomalies, assess intelligence accuracy / relevancy, and integrate plugins for automated email checks in a unified view. So I'm not going to read the explanation every time. We don't have to do that. B, why it was wrong, skips capture. C, drops automation completely. D, misfocuses on crime. So D just says something about organized crime, if I can recall, but my bad, I accidentally messed up the thing. But I mean, D is right. Sorry, but D is the right one. I messed up whenever I was building this out, I accidentally put A instead of D. So actually A misfocuses on crime. Sorry about that. Let's go to number 11. I'm sure you can't see that at all. I wish that I could so it's F. I have no idea why that bar's not going away. I would just love for that bar to go away. I guess go. So what one were we on? I mean, I don't care that show desktop's on the bottom. I mean, that's not going to hurt. At least you could actually see what we're actually doing. So we answered 10, now we're on 11, right? In a large enterprise with a hybrid infrastructure blending ICSs, which is industry control systems, SCADA systems, and cloud environments, a credentialed internal scan using Nessus reveals a high CVSS score. Vulnerability involving buffer overflow and an outdated OT component, alongside false positives from dynamic analysis in a segmented network. This coincides with asset discovery via Nmap, map scans showing rogue devices potentially weaponizable for remote code execution. Remote code execution is a critical vulnerability, so I mean, considering regulatory requirements like PCI DSS and ISO 2700, which approach best prioritizes this vulnerability using context awareness in an external threat landscape, while recommending a compensating control like input validation and secure software development lifecycle, I would guess. Software defined lifecycle practices. A dismisses as a false negative due to segmentation, focus on passive discovery without credential scans, and avoid mitigation to transfer risk per governance policy. B. Validate as true positive via fuzzing. Prioritize based on asset value and exploitability. Mitigate with technical preventive controls such as patching during maintenance windows, escalating if zero-day implications arise. Use agentless external scanning to confirm, ignore CVSS impact on confidentiality, and apply managerial controls like bug bounty without SDLC integration. Prioritize isolated internal contexts only. Recommend detective controls via Metasploit, but skip validation to meet SLOs. So, that is the answer choices. I mean, this one is pretty hard, but I mean, this one is really hard. I mean, but if you like differentiate what it's actually saying, it's saying so much stuff. It has so much stuff in it that this question is really hard. So if you just go to the last sentence, right? This coincides with asset discovery via Nmap, map scan showing rogue devices for remote code execution. Regulatory requirements, PCI DSS, ISO. Which approach best prioritizes this vulnerability? External threat landscape. So the thing you got to look for is compensating control. Read all these questions and figure out what one is actually the compensating control. Pause the video right now and do that. And bring your answer and I'll show you the explanation. Bring what answer choice you have A, B, C, D. Okay, so if you got this answer right? You got it right because you're oh, my bad. I didn't pause it before I did it. But the correct answer is B, validate as true positive via fuzzing. Prioritize based on asset value and exploitability. So, I mean, this one just entails what is actually the compensating control in these answers. What the other answers didn't have in common is the other answers did not say any compensating controls. Compensating controls help you compensate, I don't know, but they help you compensate and actually fix the problems. Like patching could be considered a compensating control. Here they're talking about preventive controls, such as patching. Preventive, and this one's talking about what, like, this one said specifically in here that are 20 compensating controls. And compensating compensates for stuff, right? So if something bad happens, like a vulnerability, you'll already have that stuff in place, so it won't be likely to happen, right? So let's go to our next answer, or not our answer, our next question. During a vulnerability assessment in a web application hosted on AWS, ZAP's active scanning detects persistent cross-site scripting and injection flaws with high attack complexity, but low privileges required. Per CVSS metrics, output from Scout suit shows misconfigurations in cloud infrastructure, including insecure designs allowing directory traversal, while Recon NG reveals edge discovery issues. Given a scenario with data poisoning risk in an OT integrated setup, which mitigation strategy incorporates secure encoding, best practices like parameterized queries, and threat modeling, while handling exceptions and patching via risk acceptance? A. Implement responsive technical controls post-validation of true positives. Use SDLC for output encoding and session management. Escalate for penetration testing. And mitigate attack surface with edge reduction. B. Rely on passive versus active scanning differences. Accept risk for end-of-life components without patching. And ignore CVSS scope changes in hybrid environments. C. Focus on agent-based internal scans only. Apply corrective controls via fuzzing, but transfer vulnerability via bug bounty without authentication fixes. Use non-credentialed external tools like Nikto. Prioritize based on availability impact alone, and avoid secure SDLC to meet operational performance. So, I'll give you a hint right now, but I'm not going to give the answer away. Given a scenario with data poisoning risk in an OT integrated setup, which mitigation strategy incorporates secure coding best practices like parameterized queries and threat modeling, while handling exceptions, patching, risk acceptance? So, I already know what the answer is, but the key thing to look for is what relates to what. What actually is going to relate to the answer, right? So, you see in the last line, right? Coding best practices, line parameters. You're going to figure out what relates to any of these, and you'll figure out the answer immediately. So, I'm going to go to the answer. Pause the video and answer this right now. In your head, just think about what the answer is, A, B, C, or D. And then I'm going to go to the next one, pause the video. Okay, if you paused the video and came back, the correct answer is A, implement responsive technical controls post-validation. Of true positives, use software development lifecycle. I don't need to read every acronym, but I mean, it does help people that don't know the acronyms. For output encoding and session management, escalate for penetration testing and mitigate attack surfaces with edge reduction. So we have the explanation, but I'm just going to go straight to the why the other ones were wrong. B, accept risk inappropriately and ignores CVSS. C, mismatches scans, controls, and skips fixes. D, avoids SDLC and misprioritizes impacts. So I mean, A was the right answer. So let's go to the next, number 13. During a vulnerability assessment in a web application hosted on AWS Zaps, this feels like the same question, but it has different answers. So I'm just going to read off of this is the same question, but it has different answers. So basically it's the same question, but it can be used in multiple different answers, right? So focus on sensitivity levels and segmentation, ignore CVSS attack vectors, and avoid secure coding for ICS compatibility. Use detective technical controls without baseline alignment, accept the zero-day risk and operational or whatever OT, and skip threat modeling for faster implementation. Prioritize external over internal scanning, validate via reverse engineering only, and transfer via policies without corrective patching. D, apply preventive operational controls after confirming false negatives. Reduce attack surface via passive discovery, test with Metasploit for exploitability, and manage via SLO-driven escalation. So if you look back at the question, which is the same as the last one, but with different answers, we see it's still asking about the threat modeling. So this is just asking you to look for what actually emphasizes parameters queries and threat modeling, patching via risk acceptance. So bigger questions like these can have multiple different questions that are the same thing, but they can have different answer choices because a lot of the stuff overlaps, right? So I'm just going to give you a minute to think about what is the right answer. Pause the video and then resume it whenever you answered it in your head. And I'm going to get the answer. My bad. The correct answer is D. Apply preventative operational controls after confirming false negatives. Reduce attack surface via passive discovery. Test with Metasploit for exploitability. And D is right. Test with Metasploit for exploitability and manage via SLO-driven escalation. So there's the explanation if you want to read more into that. A, why it was wrong, ignores CVSS and avoids coding for compatibility mistakenly. B, skips baselines, threat modeling, and accepts risk wrongly. C, prioritizes incorrectly and skips patching. So let's get to the next question. In a dynamic vulnerability scan using OpenVOS on a virtualized environment, results indicate integer overflow and broken access control with scope changes, impacting integrity while PACU exposes cloud-specific LFI/RFI risk. Asset value assessment in a PCI DSS compliant setup reveals high exploitability from fuzzing with performance considerations during active agentless scans. Recommended a handling process that includes rollback, validation, and configuration management while applying secure software development lifecycle principles for data protection and input validation. A, use external credentialed scans for confirmation, accept risk for outdated components, and skip session management and best practices. B, dismisses as true false positives via static analysis. Avoid patching exceptions and prioritize isolated context without asset value. C, escalate based on CVSS privileges and user interaction. Implement technical corrective controls with testing and maintenance windows. Integrate SDLC threat modeling to mitigate server-side request forgery. D, focus on operational detective controls. Ignore frameworks like OWASP and transfer via governance without what? Without emulation. Okay, the key thing is fuzzing. What is fuzzing? I wanted to talk about that as soon as I read that question, but now I can talk about it since I read the question now. So fuzzing is basically fuzzing a website, right? I said it's fuzzing a website. It's going through and trying to find these exploits on a web application, right? Or a website. And fuzzing, and Zap can help you fuzz, right? Zap has functions in there that help you fuzz. Zap, Z-attack proxy, whatever it's called nowadays. Helps you fuzz. So let me get back to the question. Okay. So you got to think about what entails all of that stuff that we just talked about. I'd say we're trying to look at, I don't know, this question is hard. I mean, it don't even got a question mark. Where's the question mark at? But whatever. I have no idea. But I mean, like, OpenVOS is a virtualized environment. Use external credit. I mean, this one don't make any sense because, but let's see what the answer is. Think about your answer. Pause the video. Okay, it's going to say the answer is C. Escalate based on CVSS privileges. And user interaction. Implement technical corrective controls with testing and maintenance windows. Integrate SDLC threat modeling to mitigate server-side request forgery. Explanation. Dynamic scans OpenVOS PACU reveal overflows, controls, breaks, prioritize via CVSS, scope and integrity, and it talks about the fuzzing there. So A accepts risk and skips practices, B dismisses incorrectly and skips valuation, and D ignores frameworks and transfers wrongly. So now let's go to 15. A multi-purpose tool like MSF, which I think means Metasploit, exploits MSF is Metasploit, right? Exploits a 0-day and an end-of-life web component showing remote code execution via Stack Overflow with Arachne, confirming cross-site request forgery, and a segmented hybrid network. CVSS interpretation highlights high confidentiality, impact, and low attacks complexity, validated as true positive through immunity debugger, and vulnerability management for critical infrastructure, OT, which prioritization uses internal context awareness and recommends compensating controls like output encoding, while managing risk through avoidance and secure coding authentication. A. Prioritize based on exploitability and asset value. Mitigate with preventive technical controls post-implementation validation. Reduce attack surface via bug bounty and SDLC session management. B. Validate as a false negative with passive scanning. Transfer risk for ICS without patching. And ignore CVSS availability metrics. C. Use agent-based dynamic fuzzing for external views, accept insecure design, and skip escalation per SLOs. D. Focus on scheduling operations only. Avoid threat modeling and apply responsive controls without rollback. So I can already roll out my answer right now. And a 0-day, I mean, you're not going to have any like CVSS scores, stuff like that. So I'm like, I guess I just gave you a hint. But 0 days they don't have any CVSS until you figure out how that 0-day works, right? And you can actually log how it works. But 0 days are unknown to the system. They're able to just be ran and exploited. And I'm just going to let you answer it. So pause the video, answer the question, and we're going to give you the answer. The correct answer is A. Prioritize based on exploitability and asset value. Mitigate with preventive technical controls, post-implementation validation. Reduce attack surface via bug bounty and SDLC session management, which I mean, B misvalidates and transfers inappropriately. C accepts design flaws and skips escalation. D avoids modeling and skips rollback. So main thing I see here is the explanation. Explanation is on point for this one. Talking about the actual 0-day exploitation, this answer is a good one, right? So if they were at what A actually emphasizes, if they were actually able to exploit, what assets were they able to actually get out of it, right? So that's basically all you got to think about, right? So let's go to 16, because they're talking about asset value. They're talking about the preventative controls. How can you segment and keep your most critical assets secure? That's what you got to think about. In everyday life, you got to think about that. It's just not a one-time thing. So let's get to the actual questions. During an internal agent-based scan with Nessus, output reveals security misconfigurations, enabling directory traversal and identification failures with high CVSS scores for availability due to data poisoning and SCADA systems. Maltego's mapping uncovers rogue edges and passive discovery, while Prowler flags cloud vulnerabilities with weaponization potential given the regulatory ISO 27000 requirements. Which response incorporates control types like detective, managerial, prioritizing via exploitability and handling exceptions in maintenance windows? A. Confirm true positives with reverse engineering. Escalate for risk mitigation using operational preventative controls. Test patches with rollback and apply SDLC for parameterized queries and data protection. B. Ignore context in isolated networks use non-credentialed external scans and avoid controls to accept zero-day risk. C. Prioritize external over internal. Validate via fuzzing alone and transform via policies without attack surface reduction. D. Focus on performance and active scans. Dismiss as false positives and skip secure coding for OT compatibility. Bro, they're skipping over like the most. I'm not going to give you any more hints, but skipping over the most secure coding practices, I mean, that doesn't seem right. But I'm just to let you think about that one. This one's a hard one, not going to lie, but a lot of these ones are talking about 0 day, but these are mainly going to be domain 2.2 or 2.0 of the objectives, but these answers are based on 2.0. But I mean, these ones are actually kind of hard. I mean, if you can't answer these, I mean, I don't think you're ready for the test, but they are pretty hard. If you can't answer them all 100% correct, then I think you are ready for I think you are ready for the test. But I mean, you still got to go through a lot of practice test stuff like, okay, I just need to get into it, but the correct answer is A, confirm true positives with reverse engineering. Escalate for risk mitigation using operational preventative controls. Test patches with rollback and apply SDLC for parameterized queries. And data protection. So B, ignores context and acceptance. Risk. C, prioritizes wrongly and skips reduction. D, dismisses and skips the secure coding practices. Okay, in a vulnerability assessment blending static and dynamic analysis, ZAP or Z-Attack proxy, what they call it now, detects persistent cross-site scripting and buffer overflow with user-required interactions per CVSS, while Scout Suite shows cryptographic failures in the cloud setups, allowing privilege escalation. Nmap's active fingerprinting during sensitivity level scans reveals ICS anomalies with industry framework like OWASP guiding baselines. Recommend mitigation for the scenario, emphasizing secure SDLC, threat modeling, corrective technical controls, and attack surface management via penetration testing. This gives you the question right off the bat, what it's actually trying to get out of you. So, I mean, A, prioritize based on integrity, impact, and scope. Implement responsive controls with validation. Exceptions, handling reduce surface through edge discovery and adversary emulation. B, uses agentless, passive tools only. Accept end-of-life risk without patching and ignore CVSS attack vectors. C, validate as true negative via, I think that's GNU debugging. Transfers for SCADA without SDLC integration. D, focus on external regulatory compliance. Avoid input validation and escalate without prioritization. So I'm just going to let you think about that for a second. Pause the video so you can think about it. And we're going to get into the next answer. The correct answer is A, prioritize based on integrity, impact, and scope. Implement responsive controls with validation and exceptions. Reduce surface through edge discovery and adversary emulation. Why B is wrong. B, accept risk and ignores vectors. C, misvalidates and skips integration. D, avoids input and escalates without priority. 18. An external non-credential scan using OpenVOS identifies heap overflow and injection flaws in a web app with high exploitability for Metasploit testing and asset value in PCI DSS context. Burp Suite confirms server-side request forgery with low privileges but high confidentiality impact alongside false negatives in segmented OT. In vulnerability handling, which process uses risk principles like mitigation through compensating operational controls while incorporating secure coding, session management, and bug bounty for attack surface reduction. A, validate positives via fuzzing and context awareness. Prioritize zero-day weaponization. Apply preventative managerial controls with implementation, testing, and rollback. B, dismiss based on internal isolation. Use dynamic reverse engineering without controls. And accept risk per governance. C, rely on agent-based internal scans. Ignore CVSS complexity and transfer via SLOs without emulation. D, focus on scheduling performance. Avoid threat modeling and apply detective controls post-exploitation. Okay, think a little bit about this answer. Watch what actually hints at the answer, right? And just look at the last line. The last line gives you the best hint, but I'm going to go to the answer. Pause the video now if you want to answer it. The correct answer is A, validate positives via fuzzing And context awareness prioritizes zero-day weaponization. Apply preventative managerial controls with implementation testing and rollback. The reason B was wrong is because B dismisses and accepts wrongly. C ignores complexity and transfers. D avoids modeling and applies post-exploitation. In a critical infrastructure scenario with SCADA integration, Recon NG's multi-purpose analysis uncovers LFI vulnerabilities with integer overflows validated as true positive via dynamic fuzzing. This feels like the same question, but A escalates for mitigation with patching validation in maintenance windows. Reduce attack surface via passive security controls, testing, and bug bounty. But let's just read the last line. Recommend a comprehensive management approach using technical response controls, prioritizing via asset value exploitability while aligning with SDLC best practices like authentication, output encoding, and managing exceptions through risk avoidance. A. Escalate for mitigation with patching, validation, and maintenance. Windows reduce attack surface via passive security controls, testing, and bug bounties. Integrate SDLC for data protection. Use external active scans only. Accept cryptographic failures without rollback. And ignore context in hybrid setups. C. Prioritizes isolated networks. Validate false positives via static debugging. And transfer risk without secure coding. D. Focus on regulatory CySA benchmarks. Avoid penetration testing and apply corrective controls without escalation. Okay, so the answer for me is really put out and clear what I would do. So pause the video, figure out what the answer is, and I'm about to show you the answer, so pause the video. The correct answer is A. Escalate for mitigation with patching, validation, and maintenance windows. Reduce attack surface via passive security controls, testing and bug bounty. Integrate SDLC for data protection. Explanation. Multi-purpose analysis. Recon NG Nessus PACU validate true positives. Fuzzing. Prioritizes CVSS, vectors, and impact. And asset exploitability. So B accepts failures and ignores context. C misvalidates and transfers without coding. And D avoids testing and skips escalation. So what is escalation? It's giving it to your higher ups, the people that are higher up, giving it to the next person up so that they can tell the next person up, stuff like that. That's what escalation is. In a multi-stage APT attack, an adversary conducts passive OSINT on social media reconnaissance. They craft a watering hole exploit kit weaponization. They deploy it via a compromised legitimate website. Delivery exploits a browser zero-day exploitation. They install a rootkit for persistence. Installation, they install it. Establish DNS tunneling for C2 command and control. And exfiltrates proprietary designs while disrupting operations, actions on objectives. That's what they want to do. What they objective, right? Using the diamond model, this aligns with an adversary leveraging capabilities against a victim. Via infrastructure, how would integrating MITRE ATT&CK enhance this analysis compared to relying solely on OSS-TMM or OWASP testing guide? Particularly for attributing the DNS tunneling and rootkit tactics. In a cloud-native environment, use Diamond Model solely for attribution, ignoring MITRE ATT&CK's enterprise matrix since it's redundant with kill chain phases. Prioritize OWASP for browser exploit testing and OSS-TMM for channel visibility, as MITRE ATT&CK lacks testing methodologies for watering holes. Map to the DNS for C2 and the rootkit for persistence, enabling technique-specific hunting. IOC sharing across frameworks. OSS-TMM focus on operational security testing channels without tactic granularity, while OWASP emphasizes web vulns like injection or endpoint persistence. D. What does it apply OSS-TMMs? Ravens for all phases as attack is too adversary focused. It misses manual testing guides like OWASP. So I'm not going to give you the answer because I don't want you to get the answer right away. I want you to get the answer right away, but I don't want to just give it out to you. So I'm going to give you some hints. So it's asking, how would integrating MITRE ATT&CK help out with the analysis compared to relying on OSS-TTM? So it's saying, why would you use MITRE ATT&CK and how would it be better than using these other things? Particularly for the DNS tunneling and rootkit tactics, cloud-native environments. So this one's sort of hard because there's so many possibilities. But I'm just going to pause this video and answer it, and we'll see if you got it right. I'm about to go to the next question. Okay, the correct answer is C. Map to DNS for C2, and the rootkit for persistence, enabling technique-specific hunting and an indicator of compromise sharing across frameworks. And it talks about OSSTTM. It talks about OWASP, explains what the moderate attack framework is. So reason A is wrong because it dismisses the moderate attack value in detailing behaviors beyond Diamond's high-level structure, prioritizes defensive testing over offensive mapping, ignoring attack strength and adversary emulation. D overemphasizes OSS TMM's testing metrics while undervaluing attacks behavioral focus for attribution. Okay, we're about to go to 21. During a red team assessment of an IoT network, the team uses the OWASP testing guide to identify firmware vulnerabilities. Example, insecure deserialization. Then applies the cyber kill chain to simulate delivery via rogue access point, exploitation of weak encryption in C2 over MQTT. Contrast this with Diamond model's approach, where infrastructure rogue access points connects adversary capabilities, deserialization exploits, to the victim IoT devices, which best explains why moderate attack would be superior to OSS TMM for post-assessment reporting in this scenario, especially for lateral movement via device pivoting. A. OSS TMM's operational ravens provide better quantitative risk scoring than attack's qualitative techniques. B. Attack catalogs for the proxy for pivoting and exploitation for remote services, offering enterprise-wide mappings for IoT. OSS TMM is a channel-centric for visibility but lacks tactic-specific mitigations. C. Rely on OWASP for all IoT's testing, as attack doesn't cover firmware-specific guides. D. Use kill chain alone since Diamond and attack add unnecessary complexity to simple simulations. Okay, this answer is really clear to me, what the actual answer is, but pause the video, think about this for as long as you want, but I'm going to go to the next and show you what the answer actually is. But before you do that, actually think about what the answer is. So I'm going to go to the answer now, so make sure you pause the video before so you can pick an answer for yourself. The correct answer is B, attack catalogs, proxy and pivoting for exploitation of remote services, offering enterprise-wide mappings for IoT. And then it talks about OSS TMM. A misrepresents OSS TMM's strength, as it doesn't excel in behavioral tactic breakdowns like attack, moderate attack. C limits to web IoT vulns in OWASP, ignoring attack's broader applicability to post-exploitation. My bad. It just skipped because I had it on play. D simplifies frameworks excessively, overlooking synergies for thorough reporting. So, I mean, you can see why they were just giving all the wrong... Basically, that answer was really hard because it was trying to give you all of, like, the wrong information, telling you, like, oh, for example, if we go back to the question, they're saying rely on... It's saying stuff that's false. Attack doesn't cover firmware-specific guides. And, I mean, that's, like, if you go to look what it says that it's only on web IoT vulns in OWASP, ignoring its moderate attack's broader applicability to post-exploitation. So it was saying lies about moderate attack and how it can be used for post-exploitation and looking how that post-exploitation works. So this question was a tricky question. You know, if you knew what the moderate attack and all the OWASP and you knew the background behind that, it would have been easier to actually differentiate. So this is just a question testing if you know the strengths and weaknesses of all these frameworks. So let's answer this one. 22. In a zero-day exploit incident affecting a containerized microservices architecture, indicators of compromise include anomalous pod creations, privilege escalations via misconfigured Kubernetes role-based access control, and data exfiltration to an S3-compatible bucket. For detection and analysis, acquire evidence with chain of custody, validate integrity using SHA-512 and preserve container logs. Ephemeral storage, then for containment, isolate via namespace quarantining. Eradicate by pod deletion and RBAC, remediation. Recover with blue-green deployment. Which option best outlines this while incorporating impact scoping and compensating controls like runtime security controls? I'm throwing the hard question at you. I'm throwing all these hard questions. But this is like to show if you're ready for the test, right? A. Focus on log analysis contained via firewall rules. alone and eradicate without scoping. B. Skip hashing for speed, use full network shutdown for containment, and recover without controls. C. Correlate IOCs and SIEM, acquire images with DD. My bad, that was skipping to the next thing, but with DD, hash with SHA-512, preserve via kubectl logs. Containment, scope via graph analysis, isolate namespaces, eradication, delete pods, fix RBAC, reimage, recovery, blue-green with Falco for runtime monitoring. D. Preserve evidence last. Use VLANs for containers and recovery via snapshots, ignoring runtime tools. And I'm going to give you a hint on this one. I'm not going to give the full answer away, but I'm going to just say snapshots aren't that reliable. I mean, they only apply to the VM. You can't make duplicates of the VM, and you can't make other snapshots go to other VMs and have the same thing go up. So full backups are the way to go. So I'm just going to put that out there. But this one asks, which option best outlines this while incorporating impact scoping? Keyword, impact scoping. Also keyword, compensating controls. Also runtime security controls. So if you see any runtime security tools, if you see any, I just gave away the answer. Okay, whatever. We're going to actually show you the answer. Pause the video if I didn't give the answer away, but let's go to the answer. Pause the video if you don't know what the answer is, but pick one of them. Pick A, B, C, or D. Okay, the correct answer is C. Detection, correlate IOCs and SIEM, acquire images with DD, hash with SHA-512, preserve via kubectl logs, containment, scope via graph analysis, isolate namespaces, eradication, delete pods, fix RBAC, reimage, recovery, blue-green with Falco for runtime monitoring. And if you would have read the question, right? If you got this one right, you did pretty good. You might actually be ready to take the test. But, okay, let me just show you. See how it says runtime security controls? I give the answer away by putting Falco for runtime monitoring. So that should have already made you go, oh, runtime in the question, runtime in the answer. You know what I'm saying? But I hope I didn't give that one away. Okay, now 23. So following a supply chain compromise in a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, I believe, pipeline, detection reveals tampered artifacts via hash mismatches, lateral movement through Jenkins slaves, and exfiltration blocked by a web application firewall, analyzes logs for timeline reconstruction, apply legal hold on pipelines contained by revoking tokens, eradicate via pipeline rebuild, and oh, my bad. Oh, I just gave away the answer. Sorry about that. Because the thing skipped to the answer, but I'll try and edit that out if I can. But let's read it. Pipeline rebuild and recover with secret rotations in MFA. What is the optimal approach considering multi-cloud impacts and compensating controls like secret managers? Apply holds post-eradication. Use full outage for containment, skip multi-factor authentication. B. Ignore timelines for quick containment, eradicate without holds, recover sans controls. C. Use only endpoint logs, contain via IP blocks, eradicate partially. D. Reconstruct via elk stack, hold legally on artifacts, token revocation, and slave isolation. Rebuild pipelines, rotate creds, recovery, MFA, enforcement with vault for security. Secrets, I mean. But, I mean, impacts, compensating controls, you gotta just see what's actually compensating control. And it'll lead you to the answer. But, pause the video, figure out what your answer is. I'm not gonna give the answers away. I figured people learn better that I don't give the answers away. But pause the video now so you can figure out what one you want to pick, A, B, C, or D. And here's the answer. The correct answer is D, analysis reconstruct via elk stack. Hold legally on artifacts. Containment, token revocation, and slave isolation. Eradication, rebuild pipelines, rotate creds. We already read all that. But that's basically why it's right. Give an explanation, evidential preservation with. Especially, I mean, you're holding legally, which automatically says evidential preservation if you're holding them legally. So it just switched over for me, but let's read this one. For preparation in a global enterprise with hybrid infrastructure, develop an IR plan integrating BCDR tools like SOAR playbooks for ransomware tabletop exercises, quarterly and training on phishing, which best describes this phase, emphasizing alignment with regulatory compliance and tool testing. Focus on training only, skip tools test and compliance. B. Omit playbooks, run tabletops annually. Ignore BCDR integration. C. IR plans with BCDR, failover. SOAR orchestration, ransomware playbooks, tabletops for simulation. Compliance aligned training, test tools via simulations. D. Develop plan post incident. Use ad hoc exercise. So I already know the answer to this, but which best describes this phase, emphasizing alignment with regulatory compliance and tool testing? Pause the video, pick what your answer is, and I'll be going to the next thing, if it lets me. The correct answer is C, airplane with BCDR failovers. SOAR orchestration, ransomware playbooks, tabletops for simulation, compliance-aligned training, test tools via simulations. Explanation builds proactive readiness with integrated elements, ensuring tested compliant responses for effective life cycle management. A, narrows to one aspect, neglecting holistic planning. B, reduces frequency and omits key integrations, weakening preparation. D, delays preparation, violating life cycle principles. So that's why all of them are right or wrong. But let's get to the next one. In post-incident activities after a data breach, conduct forensic analysis with memory dumps, root cause via 5 whys, and lessons learned for policy updates. What is the comprehensive approach, including stakeholder debriefs and metrics for improvement? A, focus on lessons only. Ignore metrics and debriefs. B, skip forensics. Use casual RCA omit updates. C, forensic with volatility. RCA via 5 whys timeline. Lessons learned with debriefs, update playbooks, metrics for dwell time reduction. D, conduct, RCA means root cause analysis, right? Conduct root cause analysis first, delay forensic and lessons. So I'm just going to have you think about what is the comprehensive approach, including stakeholder debriefs and metrics for improvement. So I mean, I can already think of what the answer is now because it's talking about it, right? But this answer is like flat out, it's shown. I mean, this is the easiest question ever, but so let's go pause the video. If you don't know what the answer is, pick an answer that you think it is, and we'll go to the next explanation. The correct answer is C, forensics with volatility. Root cause analysis via the 5 whys timeline, lessons learned with debriefs. Update playbooks metrics for dwell time reduction. Explanation ensures thorough closure with evidence-based insights. Driving continuous improvement through structured reviews and quantifiable enhancements. A, limits to surface level learning without depth or measurement. B, bypasses criticality. Analysis steps leading to repeated failures. D, missed sequences, potentially losing volatile data. A, global pharmaceutical company with 120,000 endpoints and 400 plus SaaS applications has just completed its annual ISO 27001 surveillance audit. The auditors flagged inconsistent vulnerability remediation timelines and demanded evidence of a mature reporting framework. The CISO must present a strategic vulnerability management report to the risk committee next week to avoid a major nonconformity. Which of the following represents the most critical combination of report components to demonstrate risk-aware prioritization and operational governance? A, CVE list with CVSS scores affected host IPs in a pie chart, I don't know how to say that, of vulnerability age buckets. B, risk scored vulnerabilities with business context, recurrence trends, SLO, compliance dashboards, and documented inhibitors. C, patch success rate by OS type, vendor patch, release cadence, and training completion percentages. So Linux is one of the most used for like web infrastructure, stuff like that. So I'd say it's pretty high up there on you need to be trained in it. So D, top 10 vulnerabilities by exploitability in the wild and compensating controlled deployment status. So which of the following represents the most critical combination of report components to demonstrate risk-aware prioritization and operational governance? So I can already pick out what answer I would pick, but pause the video, pick the answer, and I'm going to show you the answer right now. The correct answer is B, explanation integrates risk scoring with business context, not just CVSS. Recurrence, tracking critical for maturity, SLO compliance, quantifiable governance, and transparent inhibitors. This satisfies ISO improvements all required to close audit findings and secure funding. A, raw CVE list and age buckets are tactical outputs, not strategic. They lack business impact, prioritization, rationale, or remediation barriers, failing audit depth. C, patch success and training metrics are lacking operational KPIs, key performance indicators, not a strategic report framework. They belong in appendices, not the core narrative. D, top 10. By exploitability is useful but incomplete without context. Asset value, recurrence, SLOs, inhibitors. It's a dashboard widget, not the full report. Okay, next question. During a red team engagement, a financial services firm suffers a simulated APK supply chain compromise, leading to lateral movement via 0-day in a mobile banking SDK. The incident is declared at T plus 45 seconds, or 45 minutes, whatever that means, and fully eradicated by 1800. I believe this is military time. Something you got to know, but if you're in the military, you definitely got to know it. But the General Counsel requires a preliminary incident report for the board and insurance carrier by T plus 24 hours. Yeah, you definitely got to know this if you're in the military. With regulatory filing due at T plus 7200. Which structured report element is most essential to include in the T plus 24 hours briefing to enable rapid decision-making and legal protection? A. Full forensic memory dump and Yara rule set used for detection. B. Executive summary plus the who, what, when, why, where, why. Timeline with containment milestones plus initial impact estimate, systems, data, and the financial. C. Draft customer notification letter and media holding statement. Or D. The root cause analysis with vendor accountability matrix. So this one says the most essential to include in the T plus 24 briefing to enable rapid decision making. This one wants you to talk about the rapid decision making and legal protection. So I can already pick my answer, but pause the video so you can pick your answer. And let's go to the actual answer. Pause the video now. Pause the video now. Okay, the correct answer is B, explanation. Delivers a structured defensible narrative using the 5 Ys and the, 5W1H framework. Then the timeline with the T0, TN milestones and quantified impact. All required for board decision-making, invoke cyber insurance, and legal regulatory compliance. Regulatory compliance applying to the SEC 8K and the GDP Art 33. Preserves chain of custody and supports escalation without overwhelming executives. A. Forensics artifacts. Why A is wrong. Forensic artifacts belong in technical appendices or secure evidence lockers, not a T plus 24 executive brief. Premature inclusion risk, data leakage, and decision paralysis. Why C is wrong. PR drafts are parallel work streams, not the core incident report. They require the report's facts first. Reversing order violates communication sequencing. So doing anything out of order with the communication just messes up your whole operation. So that's why C's wrong. D. RCA at T plus 24 hours is premature. Initial indicators may change, rushing vendor blame, risk, contractual disputes, and reputational damage. So, I mean, just think about, right, how people are wanting these, like, briefings and stuff like that. Their milestones, stuff like that. And how the order that stuff should be happening. So just think about that. That's why the answer is right. B is right. Because you need a narrative. You need something to talk to someone about during the briefing. Especially for the 24-hour briefing, it's like the most important timing, right? So let's get to 28. A regional utility provider operating OT systems on proprietary SCADA platforms discovers a CVSS 10.0 firmware vulnerability via threat intelligence. The vendor confirms no patch for 24 months due to certification delays in embedded proprietary code. The vulnerability management team must escalate to the OT governance board and justify continued operation. Which of the following is the most appropriate reporting and communication action to balance security, compliance, and operational continuity? A. Immediately isolate all affected PLCs and demand vendor emergency patch under MOU, which is memorandum, something like that. Memorandum of breach. I have no idea. Memorandum. I should know this. Memorandum of something. MOU. Like, I don't even know what OU stands for. Breach clauses. B. Document the vulnerability with adjusted risk score considering air gap controls. Propose compensating controls, undirectional gateways, enhanced monitoring. And initiate a 36-month modernization roadmap tied to CAPEX. What's CAPEX? I have no idea. C. Accept the risk without documentation to avoid alerting regulators. D. Report only to internal IT. And exclude OT stakeholders to prevent panic. I don't even know what CAPEX is, but think about the answer. I know what the answer is. Think about what the answer might be. And I'm going to pause the video right now if you're going to answer it right. So I'm going to get a next answer. Or not the answer, the explanation. The correct answer is B. B follows NIST 853 and all those other crazy ones. By documenting residual risk, applying defense in depth with the compensating controls, I guess, and aligning remediation with capital planning. It satisfies some auditing thing requirements while maintaining grid stability, critical for OT. A is incorrect. Immediate isolation risk blackouts and violates SLAs for availability. Forcing vendor action without justification. Breaches memorandum. I have no idea what the other words are. Governance. C is incorrect. Undocumented risk. Acceptance is audit failure. Violates SOX, ISO, NERC. Invites regulatory fines and lawsuits. D is incorrect. Siloing OT from reporting creates governance gap, delays, compensating controls and risk, insider threats, or uncoordinated response. Okay, let's go to 29. Following a ransomware incident that encrypted 15% of file shares, including backup metadata, the incident response team conducts a 72-hour hot wash. Leadership demands a lessons learned briefing to prevent recurrence. Metrics show MTTD 4.2 hours, MTTR 29 hours. Containment achieved via EDR blocking. Which KPI and communication focus should the IR lead emphasize and the executive summary to drive investment in detection and response maturity? Which KPI and communication focus should the IR lead, incident response lead, emphasize in the executive summary to drive investment in detection and response maturity? A. Show the alert volume by source and the false positive rate. This is usually going to be phishing alerts, stuff like that for A, right? B, mean time to detect. So they're going to do the trend over the 12 months in comparison to an industry benchmark. Or C, percentage of systems with disk encryption enabled pre-incident. Disk were used in an incident per quarter of the year. That one don't make any sense, but I mean, it's not even like grammarly, but D, number of employees completing phishing training in the last quarter. So, I mean, I already got my answer locked in, but pause the video if you don't have your answer locked in, and I'm going to get to the question right now, so pause it. I'm going to skip to the next explanation. The correct answer is B. Explanation highlights MTDD as a leading indicator of detection maturity, shows trend degradation, and benchmarks against Verizon, DBIR, Mandiant, M-Trends, less than 1 hour for ransomware. This justifies security information event management tuning, EDR expansion and threat hunting directly tied to dwell time and risk exposure. Then we have all why it's incorrect, stuff like that. A, alert. Volume, false positives are tuning, metrics not strategic. They don't prove business impact or response effectiveness. C, encryption coverage is a control gap, but not a response KPI. It's a remediation action, not a performance driver. D, training completion is preventative, not detect/respond. It doesn't address the 29-hour containment gap. So that's why all those ones are wrong. That's why B is right. So just think about that. Now we're going to go to the next question. Question 30, we're almost done. The vice president of information security at a cloud-native fintech startup is building a monthly security scorecard for the audit and risk committee. Startup uses automated vulnerability scanning, CI/CD, security gates, and 24/7 SOC. The board wants to predictive risk insights and clear ties to business outcomes. Which single metric best reflects both vulnerability management maturity and alignment with business-driven SLOs in a dynamic environment? A, total number of open vulnerabilities by severity. B, percentage of critical vulnerabilities in production systems remediated within 72 hours. C, average CVSS score of vulnerabilities in container images. D, number of security awareness training sessions delivered. Okay, so I've locked in my answer. Pause it so you can have more time to look at the questions and pick out the right question for you, or the right question and see if you can get it right. So let's get into the answers, okay? If you paused and made your answer. So the correct answer is B, explanation. B measures remediation velocity against a business-defined SLO, directly linking security operations to DevOps, velocity, and risk tolerance in CI/CD environments. 72-hour critical patches, CLA is a leading indicator of deployment, risk, and audit readiness for SOC 2 PCI DSS 6.1. A, raw counts ignore severity, context, or velocity. A high number may reflect active scannings, not poor performance. C, average CVSS is static and ignores exploitability. Asset value or remediation status. It's not actionable. D, training sessions are preventative. hygiene, not a vulnerability management outcome. No link to patching or risk. So that's the last question. I hope you learned something from this. I hope you got them all right. If you got them all right, I think maybe you're ready to actually take the test. I mean, these questions were pretty hard in my opinion. I don't know. They might have been really easy for you if you've been studying for this certification for a long time. But yeah, that's my last question. I typed in 30 questions. But thank you everybody for watching this, because I like making practice test videos. I like making educational videos. And just comment down below anything, like subscribe if you would. I mean, you don't have to subscribe if you don't want to. But definitely, if you don't subscribe, hit that like button. I mean, I always appreciate when someone likes my video. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope this video taught you something.